Recently, AEP issued a revision to its switching and tagging policy. The purpose of the revision was to provide dispatching centers and their associated working partners some consistency in the accepting and issuing statements associated with all operating orders. To provide consistency when a scope change affecting those operating orders is dictated by working conditions. And lastly, to provide consistency with the usage of the red hold tag, the informational tag, and any approved non-operating tags.
This video will illustrate a scope change scenario that you may come across and what steps you are expected to follow to achieve consistency across the AEP footprint. All personnel working alone or the individual responsible for a crew or party working together shall notify the proper dispatching authority immediately upon entering and leaving any station and report the nature of all work to be performed. The Station Check-in, Check-out, or CHICO tool can handle most check-ins and check-outs without dispatcher assistance. It automatically records the check-in information in the log at the Transmission Dispatching Center, or TDC, or Distribution Dispatching Center, DDC, that's responsible for the station. In addition to automating check-in and check-out processes, CHICO also provides a number of other benefits, including automatic notifications, search for people or stations, hazard flags, and the capability to generate GPS maps with directions, which is expected to be extremely helpful in storm restoration efforts when employees are called from other service territories to assist. All employees and contractors are expected to use CHICO for station entry. Contractors should contact the Transmission Construction Representative Superintendent for access. The switch person will complete a walkthrough before the start of a switching job after the switching is completed. Then the clearance holder will complete a walkthrough to verify the isolation points before accepting the clearance. After accepting the clearance holder will make these clearance points known to all field personnel involved in the work to be performed. All original points of clearance are tagged using the appropriate hold tag. Following a scope change, it is very important to identify and place hold tags on the new points of clearance and relay this information to all working in the station. A hold tag prohibits operation of the device on which it is placed and must be respected. The dispatching authority shall verify that all hold tags required at all clearance points are in place prior to an issuance of an operating order on equipment. Before starting work on de-energized equipment, the clearance holder is responsible for performing the de-energized testing and grounding for personal protection. The transmission ground tracking form is used for testing and grounding. Contractors may use their own version of this. In this scenario, the original switching order for the substation showed a work scope to replace the capacitor 6985 rack and associated equipment. This is the first clearance issued by the TDC to the field personnel. The clearance points need to be modified due to the new capacitor rack height being too close in proximity to the overhead span between the two dead-end H-frame structures. When a situational need for a scope change occurs, the field personnel must first stop the job. The most important aspect of each job is safety. In this demonstration, an existing clearance operating order needs to be modified due to the close proximity to energized overhead equipment in the station. Once the job is stopped and all personnel are in the clear, the clearance holder can notify the dispatching authority and explain the need for the scope change. After the need for the scope change has been discussed, the dispatching authority will obtain approval from the System Control Center, create a new operating order performing additional switching with the new clearance points added, and issue the new clearance to the clearance holder. This procedure follows revision to the switching and tagging policy, clearance points. Here are those revisions. In Chapter 3, all TDCs will begin including the isolation points and clearance zone perimeter during the issuing statement associated with all operating orders, which will be repeated back in the accepting statement. Also in Chapter 3, all operating orders that require an isolation point change caused by scope change and/or request will require the reissue of a new and release of the old operating order following the same guides as the above statement. In Chapter 2, TDCs are re-emphasizing the importance of the red hold tag. It's being exclusively under the control of the dispatching authority, its association with operating orders such as clearance, hold, and non-reclose, and its meeting when attached to isolation points and device controls. And finally, in Chapter 2, TDCs are aware that field personnel may use company-approved non-operating tags, such as energy hold, HPI, red flag ground, and green flag boundary, to assist from a safety perspective, but none of these substitute for the red hold tag and what it represents. In this scenario, the new clearance points are identified on the Station 1 line. The scope change clearance is to be issued by the dispatching authority. This clearance will have a new clearance number per the revision to the switching and tagging policy. All operating orders that require an isolation point change caused by the scope change and/or request will require the reissue of a new and release of the old clearance order. A new walkthrough will be performed at the substation. During this new walkthrough, the field personnel will identify the new points of their clearance and make these new clearance points known to all field personnel involved in the work to be performed. The clearance holder will make sure all scope change points of the new clearance are tagged with the appropriate hold tags.